Welcome to another episode of Clean Breaks. Today I got my cousin on here with me. We're gonna talk some boxing. We just gonna randomly spit out shit. All right, cuz I don't know if I ever asked you this, but name your top five Mexican greats all time.
Ooh, that's tough. I may have to. I may have to write. I'm gonna have to write that down because just my history when it comes specifically to Mexicans may not be as vast as yours, but I'm gonna try.
All right.
In no particular order.
No order, no order. Just give your top five Mexican greats all time.
Okay, I'm gonna go with De La Hoya.
Okay, that's one.
I'm gonna go with uh Chavez.
Okay, senior. Okay.
Julian Senior, of course. Junior, man, he started out pretty great, but I'm not sure what happened.
I think he just didn't
Uh,
want to do it.
Mexican. Wow, cuz. What's the two cats that had the wars in the late '90s, early 2000s?
Marco Antonio Barrera
Barrera.
and
Barrera.
Eric Morales.
Yes, sir. So Barrera and Morales.
Goddamn right. That's four.
Um, huh. I know this is gonna be cliche and might be a little lazy. I'll throw Canelo in there.
That's lazy. But a lot of people see him as a Mexican great already. So
I think he'll go down.
I don't. I
You
don't.
don't?
I think
Interesting.
ESPN and all the major guys that campaign, the mainstream media will do that. But those who really know boxing, when you look at his record, who did he fight? Because if
He
you name
fought
some,
triple. He fought Triple G.
all right, cool,
He fought. Of course, he fought Triple G. What,
twice.
twice?
Mm-hmm.
You could. He fought Lara. Well, he fought Lara, but he got beat. He got beat by Lara.
I think he lost to Lara, and that doesn't mean
So do I.
anything. It doesn't mean
So do I.
anything. But I
Yep.
think Lara won that fight. Okay, that's
So do
that's a
I.
good fight. But for
Um.
the majority of his resume, he fought guys who were on their way out. He fought Shane Mosley on his way out. He
Yeah.
fought Cotto on his way out. Um, Austin Trout gave him a decent fight.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But when you compare him to those guys on your list, his record just doesn't stack up to what they've done. You understand what I'm saying? So my list would have been without Julio Cesar Chavez, it would have been Eric Morales, Marco Antonio Barrera.
Yep.
It would have been Ricardo Finito Lopez. It would have been Juan Manuel Marquez. And
I forgot about Marquez, cuz.
uh-huh.
Wow.
And then
Nice.
it would have been Salvador Sanchez. You understand?
I didn't really get into Salvador Sanchez until like looking at some of the old fights recently. So yeah, but great list. I don't disagree with any of those.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, man, nice.
yeah.
Who's your top five outside of like period? Who else?
All time,
Yeah,
Roy Jones Jr.,
nice. I like that.
Marvin Hagler,
I like that.
Jack Johnson, Sugar Ray Robinson, the original, the OG, and Archie Moore.
Wow, you going back?
Yeah, because I'm quite sure if I get those guys a fight, it's a good chance they're gonna knock out or hurt anybody that you put in front of them. And if I keep going, I could put James Toney on that list.
Absolutely.
Uh, I could put who else could I throw on there? I could throw Thomas Hearns on there. I could throw.
Oh, dude, that hey man, being skinny and kind of tall myself.
I could
I
throw.
always love Tubby
Yeah,
Hearns.
it's
He
a lot
just
of
did.
guys you could throw on there. All time greats. I could throw a lot of guys on there all time. Um, who's a someone? Who's another guy that I would throw on there? Um, Sergio Maravilla Martinez. Who
from
else?
uh from not
Argentina.
Argentina, absolutely.
Argentina.
Who knocked Paul Williams smooth.
Yeah, smooth the fuck out. Carlos Monzon, guys like that. What's his name? Juan Domingo Rodan, who was
I don't.
He's a tough son of a bitch. He gave Marvin Hagler a hell of a fight, even with a busted up eye. You know, guys like that. So, hey man, did you ever hear about the story of Felix Tito Trinidad? They say his hands used to be wrapped in correctly. He had illegal wraps in his hand.
I never heard that.
You never heard of that?
So okay. Why wasn't it ever uncovered? You think when
it was uncovered it was finally uncovered when Bernard Hopkins fought Tito Trinidad. Nassim Richardson, God rest his soul, was in the back watching him get his hands wrapped.
But Nassim was the same one that discovered your other guy,
Antonio Margarito.
Yeah.
So he went back there. He told Tito that they need to re-wrap his hands because it was wrapped wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, they told him if we re-wrap our hands, this was the day of the fight now. This is right before the fight starts. He said, if I re-wrap my hands, we're going home. We call the fight off. He said, no, you won't, because this is a fight that we agreed to. This is a scheduled fight. And if you pull out, you won't get paid. So he went and he re-wrapped his hands.
And Bernard commenced to putting the pause on it.
And
what do you think?
The person who spoke on it before that was Fernando Vargas. Fernando Vargas said, on my way to the hospital, I told my wife that the power he had was unreal. It was like someone was hitting me with a bat.
I always liked Fernando Vargas.
I liked him too.
Have you seen that? Going back and seeing the fight with De La Hoya?
Yeah.
That was a
good fight. And then De La Hoya figured it out, started bouncing on his toes so he could get that left hook going. And he called him. Yeah. I knew something was up when he started bouncing. I was like, why is he bouncing? He's like, you must see something. And then all of a sudden you just saw him turn right into it. I was like, yeah, there it is.
So what does bouncing do? And forgive my ignorance.
No, it ain't ignorance at all. Well, you could call it, for those who are listening, ignorance just means that you don't know. It's not to be an insult. But when you're bouncing like that, it's like you recognize something, you know, and for me, it's a tell. Like, it's like, okay, he sees something that the rest of them don't see. So you pay attention to it, and it happened in a matter of 10 seconds when he caught Fernando. So it was a certain thing that Fernando do as far as coming forward, planting his feet, or the way that he had his stance. And it was something that Shane Mosley recognized too when he does it. So Oscar being a taller fighter at 5'10", 5'11", him being like equal odd to Fernando, he just saw it and he threw the left hook.
Was Fernando that tall as well?
Yeah. He was like 5'9", 5'10".
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always liked Fernando. He was a beast.
Yeah, but he said in an interview that he did, he said, man, if you ever go back and pay attention to that fight, you can clearly see that he looks he said when you go back, he said when I go back and watch that fight, man, he's like, this guy was hitting me with so much force. He said, I never been hit like that in all of the fights that I had. He said, I don't even remember the majority of the fight because I was so out of it.
Wow. But Tito Trinidad did kind of pack a punch there though, cuz he would get your ass up out of there.
He would, but what I would like for you to do, which kind of made me think that what Fernando Vargas was saying is true, is go look at Tito Trinidad's record after he fought Bernard Hopkins.
So would you argue he was never the same, or after the hand wrap got discovered, he was never able to?
There was nothing else there because it was just like, now you've been figured out now. Same way with Antonio Margarito, right? Now that we know what you are.
But you don't think that's with anybody? Is that not the same thing that happened like with Mike Tyson? Like once the veil of invulnerability was
taken off,
unmasked.
Yeah.
he was like, once he was shown to be a mere mortal, he started losing.
Yeah, but he started losing because he had so much success thrown at him early. You know what I mean? Mike, once Cus D'Amato died, Mike was just a wild guy. He was just wild. Like, couldn't nobody tell him nothing. He wasn't training properly. And he said it himself. Even on his podcast, he said it. I wasn't training properly. I was fucking bitches, all through my camp. I was fucking them, in the back right before the fights. I was doing cocaine and all that shit. Mike said that. So you can only imagine a guy like that not being in complete control, and all these vices are in front of him. And when you're not training properly, you're gonna fuck up. All right.
King's disease, huh?
Yeah. So after Bernard Hopkins, who he lost in a TKO, he fought Hassan Sharifi at 160, who he knocked out. He fought Ricardo Mayorga, who he knocked out. And then he fought Ronald Winky Wright, who would also be on my list.
Who beat him beautifully.
Boxed his head off until it almost popped
beautifully, cuz. Was a masterpiece. Mwah.
Magnifico. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Beautifully jabbed his ass back, beautifully. People don't give Winky Wright.
Winky Wright was doing so well that he even started throwing uppercuts by the 7th round in that fight.
People don't give Winky Wright his props.
No, they don't. And to speak on that, Errol Spence reminds me of him a little bit.
I don't think Winky was. I don't think he was marketable. He didn't have the personality, if you will. Maybe he was like too humble or too.
He was a regular guy, and they were expecting him to be more than that. I think, and the other thing about it was Winky, even though he came forward and he wanted to outbox you and put pressure on you, Winky didn't go for knockouts. Like, he stayed within his stance. He didn't throw the hardest shots that he could. If you go back and watch it, he threw everything to snap. Pap, 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 and he get back. Pap, pap, and he get back. Pap, pap, and he get back. 1, 2, pap, pap, and he get back. Pap, 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 and he get back. He never sat down on them punches to kind of like take your head off. So the marketability of a guy that was like a knockout artist wasn't there for them. But Winky was very talented. He was about him and Sweet Pete, Pernell Whitaker, with some talented left-handed guys, but Sweet Pete had more of a flash because he knew that he could see everything before it happened.
So, which would make him more marketable because he, from a showmanship standpoint, he was able to put on a better show. Which the same argument you could have towards Floyd that people disliked is because Floyd's fights were typically boring.
Correct, because he was a master craftsman. He was a master craftsman and a technician. And the thing about that is, when you're that good, you need a heel. You need a bad guy, right? So him being so good and not getting knockouts because of the hand issues and everybody else being bigger than him at the time, he needed the Mexican knockout artists. He needed all these Latin knockout artists or whoever was at the top to rival him, because styles make fights as well, right? So he needed that. But Floyd was a motherfucker too, man. And people forget that with Floyd, before it was Money Mayweather, it was Pretty Boy Floyd. Pretty Boy Floyd was knocking people out at 130, 135. Right.
Hey man, I know you and I have had this conversation, and I won't say argument or discussion ad nauseum, but I think Floyd will go down as one of the greatest fighters ever, bro.
He will. There's no, you can't deny it. Like, the only thing that people gonna bring up or they're gonna try to pick apart is the fact that he didn't fight Paul Williams or Antonio Margarita or Costa Tszyu when he should have fought them. They're gonna bring that type of stuff up. Oh, and then they're gonna say things like He fought Juan Manuel Marquez, and Juan Manuel Marquez was at 130 and came up to 147 to fight him. So there's gonna be some issues there for him, but he will go down as an all-time great, because if he doesn't, I'm gonna be the guy that says, well, who did Rocky Marciano fight?
Yeah, I haven't seen. I don't think I've ever seen a Rocky Marciano fight at all. So
Okay, so away from that, Tito Trinidad's last fight was against Roy Jones Jr., and he lost that fight.
Right. But were those not like the elite fighters, if you will? Like,
correct. Those are the elite fighters, but it's kind of odd, when you did fight the elite fighters, the knockout power went away, and you couldn't land those. You couldn't land those type of shots. So,
cause I just think that when faced with a opponent that's of a higher skill set than yourself, they're able to disarm or take away some of the things that made you
your strength,
who you are.
Correct.
And if you aren't able to make adjustments, then they make you look normal, just like Winky Wright made him look below average.
He looked like a D level fighter that night.
Just like,
I mean, that jab was just working.
Just like it was a masterpiece.
That's one of, you know what? And to be honest, cuz if I speak on that fight, that's one of my favorite fights of all time. I can watch that fight every day of the week.
That shit was poetry in motion. Just they could have put a 12-string orchestra to it.
Yeah, you could have got rid of the crowd and just listened to them box, and I'd have been happy. You could have turned. And when I watched that fight, I turn the sound down like I do with every fight, because I don't like the commentators, because the commentators be saying some ridiculous shit sometimes.
They do.
Especially back then, at the time when you had Jim Lampley. He'd just be saying any type of things out of his mouth, man. And people would just be thinking that he was telling the truth or whatever. But I watch with
I kind of like Jim Lampley.
Nah.
I love Jim Lampley, and
I love the voice. I love the voice and everything. And when he gets excited about boxing, but you ever pay attention to him, man, he says stuff that makes you go, yo, you have an agenda when it comes to certain boxers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not for the sport of boxing, but for certain boxers, like, you have an agenda. Like, he was heavy on Golovkin. He was heavy on Kovalev. He was heavy on those guys. But when it came to guys like Floyd and everything, why don't he just go for the knockout? Floyd ain't the biggest guy. He been fighting guys bigger than him his whole career. So when you go up to fight at 147, everybody is walking around at 170, 180, 190.
Right.
So when they hydrate the night of the fight, they probably are 160, 170. Floyd probably 140, 145, if that.
Right. Yeah. When he fought Canelo, they came to Atlanta, and I kind of went to the weigh-in, or the little event they were putting on, and I saw both of them. They're really they're both small guys.
Yeah. Canelo's like around my height, 5'8".
Right.
But I was looking at him. I was like, I get it.
But he's fighting like light heavy right now.
He can.
How is that possible?
Because he's really a big dude. To start at 140 and go all the way up like that just means he was already a big dude. I mean, he'd been sucking down in weight the whole entire time. You understand? So when he fought Floyd made him come down to 153, 152. He sucked down. But then I heard something about that. Floyd said after the fight was over, He said, man, if you saw him, he looked like he had gained about 20 pounds when the fight started. And I was looking at him like, yeah, you could tell. You could tell. You could look. He looked like he was 20, 30 pounds bigger than Floyd the whole fight.
And wouldn't that cause a normal person problems to have somebody that's just physically bigger than you?
It would, but when you're Floyd Mayweather and you know that draining down like that and then putting the weight back on makes you disoriented, and even though you will be able to fight the night of the fight, you're not gonna be all there. And it takes rounds. It takes rounds for you to get acclimated to what's going on. So by that time, Floyd had already jumped on you. He has a rhythm.
Gotcha.
You understand? So
wow,
it's things like that. Like what they say in boxes is you take any advantage you can get. If you're taller, use the jab. If you know how to train yourself to lose weight properly and put it back on properly, then you use that to your advantage. If you know how to gain 20 pounds the day of the fight and ain't nobody watching, then do it. They tell you that all the time.
Let me ask you this. Is it easier to jab up or down?
Down.
So if I'm a taller fighter, does it benefit me to
down?
So it's always
down. Because all is all pressure, right? It's like dropping a rock off a building. It's going down.
Gotcha.
Right? If you're going up, you're not used to throwing punches up a lot of the time, unless you train that way and you train to fight tall guys all the time. But usually you expend so much more energy when you're trying to throw up.
But ideally, you want to be able to jab lateral or down.
Straight or
down.
Yeah. Because it's all force when it's going down like that. Like you just dropping it. It's like hitting a hammer.